a little shorter. There we go. So this resolution is subtitled How to Mortify Your Teenage Children. Bring them with you and then volunteer to do this at the last moment. So I'm a physician, and my resolution is about how I decided that I really needed to take care of very sick people. So I'm a cancer doctor. So people say, why in the world would you be a cancer doctor? So this is my story about that. So I remember distinctly when I left medical school, someone asking me, you're a doctor now, but what kind of doctor are you gonna be? And I said, well, I know for sure that the only thing that I'm not gonna do is cancer medicine. I'd spent a month in a bone marrow transplant unit, and that was just too much for me. So in my mind's eye now, in retrospect, I picture God up there going, huh, yeah. So a cancer doctor, everybody says, well, isn't that depressing? Well, I spent a year and a half as a medicine resident seeing medicine clinic. And I think that in medicine clinic, especially where I was, I saw every person in the world that had a problem that wasn't medical, that wanted a pill to try to fix their non-medical, relationship-based problems. And I tell you what, after a year and a half of that was depressing. So God decided it was time, it was ripe for me to figure out what I really needed to do. And one morning, the highlight of our day as a medical resident was we had an hour in the morning where we actually got to sit, we got to listen, we got to learn things. It was called Morning Report. One day a week, you didn't get to go to Morning Report. One day a week, you had to go to your medicine clinic. And you have an idea already what I felt about my medicine clinic. It wasn't a lot of fun. I walked up to medicine clinic. Your new patient didn't show up. Beautiful. I get to go to Morning Report, I get to sit, I get to eat a donut, this is wonderful. I get down there, and God again had decided it was time, and he struck down one of my fellow residents with pneumococcal pneumonia. You do not show up for work when you're a medicine resident. Dr. Smith that day could not come to work because he was so sick. This never happens. And so they paged me and said, okay, yeah, your new patient canceled, but Dr. Smith's patient showed up, and you have to come back down now and see Dr. Smith's patient. This is totally, totally unfair, and something I really must do. So I walk, and the guy's sick. You gotta come down and see him. Okay, I'll come down and see him. So I go down into clinic, and I walk into the room, and Mr. Wilson, who is an angel in disguise, in a really, really good disguise, is wearing like the glasses they issued in basic training camp. He has suspenders and a belt on, not a good prognostic sign in medicine. And he is in a wheelchair, and he has a vomit bucket in his lap. And he says, I'm sick. And I'm like, okay, basic medical stuff. Let's look at your medicine list. And in my mind's eye, as true as I remember it, this medicine list goes across the floor towards me. I'm like, oh my God, this is like 25 medicines. No wonder you're sick. I'm never going to be able to figure this out. You have to go to the emergency room. So at this moment, I feel something like Jonah, who's been told to go to Nineveh, when they go, nope, I'm not going. I'm not doing this. And I send him to the emergency room. I walk back down to Morning Report, catch the last 5 minutes, and I'm done with it. God says. So he pages me, not God, the emergency room. Pages me. And they say, okay, 2 hours later, we've taken care of Mr. Wilson. We've run all of his drug levels, and he's not vomiting anymore. He wants to see you tomorrow in clinic. So here I go into the belly of the whale. And I sit down with Mr. Wilson the next day, who's actually a very nice man. And he says, Doc, I need a quarterback. He said, I got 25 medicines. I got a kidney doctor, I got a heart doctor, I got a pulmonary doctor, and I need a quarterback. Will you be my quarterback? So I'm not big on football analogies, but I knew what he meant. I said, okay, here I am. I will be your quarterback. So over the next 18 months, my job was to get him out of trouble when he went to the food court, because that's what he liked to do, and ate salty foods. And his wife had my pager number, and every Monday morning we talked. I saw him every other week. And our only goal was to keep him out of the hospital. And we did. We did, by working together with him. His part of the bargain, it turned out, was to come to me every other week in what was an incredibly moving 10,000 miles a minute life that I was leading at that point, and talked to me about what it looked like from a wheelchair at a very slow pace. That year I learned that they didn't really not mow the sides of the road in Texas because they were lazy. They didn't mow the sides of the road in Texas because Lady Bird Johnson had planted wildflowers. And that year I noticed that they weren't just weeds, they were wildflowers. One of his favorite things to do was to go to the food court and people watch. And there are some very funny stories about people watching. So I know he will forgive me that when his wife paged me about 18 months into this arrangement, I answered the phone and said, "What did he do this weekend? What do we got to do?" She said, "Dr. Horenkamp, I lost him yesterday." When the picture that came into my head was him sitting alone in his wheelchair in a food court with the lights going down, and I thought, he's a really big guy and he doesn't move very fast. How did you lose him? And then of course I realized what she meant. And she came back and thanked me. Perversely, she brought me a bottle of Maker's Mark bourbon when he had an alcoholic cardiomyopathy, but she thanked me. And I got a lot more out of that experience than I had in a year and a half of medicine clinic, and I resolved that it was time for me to find some really sick people to take care of, and I did, and that's how I'm a cancer doctor.